Whew, this thing is a beast. How's it going, everyone? My name is Max and welcome back to the channel. As you can see next to me, I have just received the incredible 1/6 scale Logan Grimnar diorama from HMO Collectibles. Now, this was originally scheduled to arrive in July of last year, but was pushed back until now. But let me tell you, this thing was absolutely worth the wait. I'll start this video by going into the history of the character of Logan Grimnar, straight from the Spacewolves Codex, and then I'll list off some of the specs and information on the statue itself. And lastly, I will show the unboxing and assembly of the piece, as well as my own personal review. So let's get started with who Logan Grimnar is. Logan Grimnar is the Great Wolf or Chapter Master of the Spacewolves Space Marines chapter. He is one of the most belligerent and headstrong chapter masters in the Imperium of Man, as well as perhaps the greatest Wolf Lord of all time. Yet he remains absolutely loyal to the Emperor of Mankind and the Great Primarch of the Space Wolves, Leman Russ. Grimnar has been the Great Wolf of the Space Wolves for over 500 standard years of his 700 years of life, and is one of the oldest chapter masters of a loyalist Space Marine chapter. Like his fellow Space Marines, Grimnar is a fearsome warrior with great pride. However, unlike the stoic and formal lords of some other chapters, Logan is charismatic and likable in the extreme, as apt to reward his men with a hearty slap on the back and a tankard of Fenrisium mead as with an official commendation. Logan has been instrumental in some of the greatest Imperial victories of the 41st millennium. He has led his great company against many enemies of the Imperium and has shown a renowned thirst for battle, which some may say even rivals that of Leman Russ. Logan, or the Old Wolf as he is known by his brethren, is an extremely powerful warrior who will always fight to the end in pursuit of what he believes in, both in the name of the Emperor and for the lives of his beloved Space Wolves. Alright, now let's look at some of these specs. I pre-ordered this piece almost a year ago from Big Bad Toy Store, so huge shout out to them for making this available in the US. The total including shipping was around $1,100, and this specific statue is number 103 out of a 699 edition size, which I believe are all sold out at the time. Logan measures in at about 20 inches in height, 18 inches in depth, and about the same for his width, mainly due to the insane size of this base. So for a 1/6 scale piece, this is actually pretty massive. Now for the box that this came in, it was even larger. Measures in at about 27 inches in length, 25 in width, and 14 in depth, and was around 60 to 70 pounds. It was shipped incredibly well from Big Bad Toy Store with a massive shipping box that housed the handmade object shipping box in heavy duty bubble wrap, and then that was contained in the one that was the actual item box. Lastly, this diorama was sculpted by Mufazel Mokhtar and Shi Han Tan, painted by the Collective with art direction from the HMO design and development team. Okay, well, I think that is it for the item specifics. Now let's go ahead and put this piece together. So now that it is all put together, my initial thoughts here. There are a lot more pieces to put together than I had anticipated, but it is absolutely beautiful. The sculpt and detail on every ounce of this diorama is gorgeous and very well crafted. You can tell that there was a lot of thought put into the design and concept of the piece as well. This isn't just a statue, but more of a story unraveling before your eyes of the Great Wolf defeating his foes in the heat of battle. But I want to break this down into a pros and cons list, so I'll start with the pros. As I mentioned before, the paint and sculpt of this is masterclass. I'm really impressed with the shading under each armor plate and every recess that you can imagine. It gives a lot of depth to the character and to the sculpt, and another thing that I really liked was the texture of the snow on the base, cape, and armor that the design team decided to go with. It's more of an icy tundra than that freshly fallen snow, so you can see that it's kind of crystallized and has that effect throughout the diorama. Lastly, the pose is really dynamic as well, and thankfully, there's a lot of movement here in this diorama, even for how bulky it is. it definitely portrays the essence and prowess of the Wolf Lord, relentlessly slaying his foes. And speaking of his foes, it's another great little detail that they made by placing the Thousand Sons Space Marines as the enemies on this piece. Considering that the Thousand Sons army are the Space Wolves' most well-known rivals, it makes this thing just that much more realistic and respectable to the lore. Now onto the cons, because there are a considerable amount of cons, unfortunately. Now, just as a reminder, this is all subjective, so you are more than welcome to disagree with me. But the first thing that I noticed that really makes me nervous is the magnetic inserts for some of the pieces. The main one being the hand that holds Logan Grimnar's axe. I kept having to move it around and fiddle with it until I could finally get it to stay because of how flimsy it is. The axe is literally just held up by a small piece on the base because of the magnetized hand isn't strong enough to hold the axe up. Another negative could be just the size of the diorama. I personally don't mind it, but for someone with limited amount of room to display it, it may be a bit frustrating. To stay in the same vein on the topic of size, the base is really where most of the bulk comes from. The decision to replicate the base on this piece to the actual bases used in the Warhammer 40k tabletop game may be a positive to some, but for me, unfortunately, it takes away from the realism. It's this incredibly well-designed scene of heroic proportions and then just kind of plopped onto a boring, black, bulky base. I would have loved it if they made the rock and ice terrain the actual base to make it feel much more real and not just a stagnant display. Well, that about sums it up for my review of this 1/6 scale Logan Grimnar diorama by HMO Collectibles. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and if you enjoyed it, please like the video and subscribe for similar content. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought of this piece, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks again.